Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello everyone, welcome to this lecture. So we already discussed about the social efficiency, and with regard to social efficiency we spoke about equilibrium amount of or equilibrium quantity of demand for any commodity. So to continue this discussion further, so let us move on the next part about whether this consumer surplus and producer surplus, even if we maximize, is it optimum for the social welfare, like overall social welfare. So again we are kind of bringing this social efficiency definition, and it says that net gains of all the trades that are made in a particular market or any market, and basically what it means, like trying to maximize consumer surplus or producer surplus. So to moving further, so market failure, that let's talk about this. In equilibrium, when we have seen in context of social efficiency, at one point where consumer is also happy, producers are also very happy in the market, and because consumer surplus is being maximized and also producer surplus is maximized. But then what does that mean? Is it that overall social welfare will be maximized? So take these two examples, like first is say market power. In case of like any commodity or any market, if seller has the market power to set the price and determine price solely by the producer, which will who will have the market power in the market, then as a rational producer behavior, that producer will always try to maximize his profit at the cost of say by minimizing, either by maximizing the profit or minimizing the cost, or rather maybe that particular producer will try to choose the option 2, like minimizing the cost. So if one producer will have the market power, so will that be fair game in the market, in terms of optimizations of the consumer or producer surplus. But as we know that if price increases from the equilibrium price, above the equilibrium price, then that will will reduce the consumer surplus. So therefore, if one party, like here producer, if producer has the market power, then obviously consumer will will be the receiving end to reduce or to will or to compromise with their consumer surplus, because here producer is only setting the price. So take the example of say monopoly market, where single seller, and where producer only will set the price question, and therefore market failure will or may take place. The second point is like say externalities. We'll discuss these externalities quite well in detail. Like say, imagine this is demand for any commodity, and here say price, and this is say supply, and this is what say consumer surplus, and here is the producer surplus. So at point E, from market point of view, is perfectly efficient, like there is no no shortage, no surplus, and optimum level of quantity and optimum level of price. So ideally market is at equilibrium and all the parties are happy here, like of course the consumer and producers. But then suppose, just imagine, like while producing say any commodities, like say any factory commodities, I mean manufacturing commodities, and as a residue which is regarded as a negative negative kind of externalities in terms of production or the consumption. So if that residue will go to the say river, so river will be polluted, and then of course the livelihood for the people who are deriving their their recourse from that river will be impacted, as well as river as a whole will be polluted also from the environmental point of view. So now, although consumer and producers both are kind of having equilibrium, and also they are maximizing their kind of satisfactions of the utility, but then what does that mean? I mean, with this external effect is basically socially it is not kind of optimum, because only two persons, consumer and producer, or these two groups are actually getting benefit, but not all the parties from the society. And therefore this externalities will also lead to lead to market failure. And in this particular context, there is a role of government or the public policy comes, like as a remedy, like how consumer should behave or how producer should behave in this particular situation. So when we think about the economic efficiency, then we also have to think about the social optimizations, like where parties from all the corner of the society should be getting benefit out of it, not at the cost of others. The first point that we say, and to measure whether we are having socially efficient outcome or not, so one of the points of the measure that we do is through the deadweight loss. So what is the deadweight loss? The fall in total surplus that result from a market distortion and such as the tax. So from the market equilibrium, we see like only two beneficiaries are actually getting benefit out of it. But from the society's point of view, certainly there is no sort of equilibrium, or certainly not a socially optimum level of outcome, and therefore tax can be imposed on one of the parties or maybe on both the parties, and that imposition of the tax is basically will challenge the traditional market equilibrium, and therefore that particular concept is called market distortion. And then this market distortion will interrupt to get maximum producer surplus or maximum consumer surplus. So let's talk about it at little great details. So let's illustrate graphically, like say price of say X and quantity of X, and then let's see, this is demand which is downward sloping, and here is like supply, and then you can see here, say here, say optimum level of say P1, but suppose so this amount is a tax, like say T1 and T2, and T1 and T2 is the market distortion, and which is amount of tax which is imposed on consumer and also on the producers. So after imposing the tax, so we get the new price level for consumer and new price level for producer. So let's have a point of discussion here. So here say one D point, which is maximum reservation price, and here say S is OS is minimum selling price for the producers, and then we have one more intersections here, like say A, like at this point. So now we have say many points here, or say we can make it here, say E2 at this point. So there are many areas, like say area A, B, C, H, J, and say K. So these are the different areas that we got it, like A, B, C, H, J, and K. So how it looks like, there are three possibilities here. Of course, we can calculate say consumer surplus and producer surplus. We can also calculate say tax revenue. Then we can calculate total surplus. So here we can make it say without tax, and here with tax, and then here we can think of say, we can also write what is the change. So now without tax, what is the consumer surplus? Consumer surplus will be say this area A, like A, B, and C. These three areas without tax, like say A plus B plus C. Without tax, producer surplus is H, J plus K, like this area, and that area. So now with tax is after imposition of tax T1 and T2, then consumer surplus is just area A, and producer surplus is just area K, right? So what is the change? Change is with tax minus without tax, and then we get minus B plus C, and here minus H plus J, right? So the difference between with tax and without tax. So now what is the tax revenue here? Tax revenue, like T1, T2 amount of tax is imposed on the per unit of the quantity, and then total quantity, for instance, like optimum level of quantity is Q1, and then after imposition of the tax, quantity become Q2. So after imposition of the tax, quantity has reduced from OQ1 to OQ2, and therefore the amount that are being produced right now after imposition of the tax is OQ2 amount, and per unit tax per unit is P2 and P3 amount, and therefore total area will be P2, P3, T2 and T1. So that means area, the area that will be regarded as revenue, like without tax it will be 0, with tax is basically B plus H, this 2 area, right? This dotted area, like area B and H. right? And then the change will be B plus H. So what is the total surplus? So total surplus will be A, like all the areas, like A plus B plus C plus H plus J plus K is like total area without tax, H plus J plus K. So if we cancel this out, we get uh, C plus J. So this is like, the total, the loss that we are getting it, like the changes. So C plus J is the area that we call dead weight loss, like this, red shaded areas are deadweight loss from this optimum, pricing efficiency model. So now the point here, like although E is the optimum from the market's point of view, but then if we take the example of externalities, maybe it is only best for the consumer and producers, because they are maximizing their surplus and then they are getting optimum level of outcome, and market also as a result is getting optimum level of outcome, which is OQ1, and the price is OP1. But then from society's point of view, when we talk about social efficiency, then of course we also need to calculate what is the deadweight loss, like what is the foregone in the whole process of imposition of the market distortion. And here to control consumer and producer, and there is the imposition of the taxes, which is T1 and T2. And after imposing this tax, the area that are actually going out from the market, which is not being produced by the producers or not being consumed by the consumer. So the foregone consumer surplus is T1, E and C, which is not being produced or not, and thereby is not being demanded, and E, C and J, E2 and T2, this area is the producer loss that producer is facing it when they are not producing at the optimum level. So this is important from the policy point of view. So when public policy is framed, is very important to calculate effect of the externalities, could be positive and negative, that we'll discuss in this. Is like from the market equilibrium point of view, that loss needs to be counted. So now some of the determinants of deadweight loss, let's assume from the supply side first, and then maybe now let's see the determinants of the deadweight loss from the supply side. So supply, what we know from supply is, if we are keeping our demand function constant, and therefore quantity here, so say demand, and this demand curve in the panel A and demand curve in panel B, they are parallel to each other, because we are keeping constant, like we are not trying to understand the changes on the demand. But suppose so supply curve is like, say, become inelastic, and here like supply curve, but then it is inelastic, and supply curve here say elastic. And then can imagine, so suppose this is the tax, like say this is amount of tax is imposed on the consumer and producer, and this shaded area is the deadweight loss. So if it becomes inelastic, and if it is elastic, so elastic, if supply is more elastic, then loss deadweight loss will be higher as compared to if supply is inelastic. Likewise, if we take the example of say demand side, what are the determinants? So again, say in this case we will keep supply curve constant, and therefore supply function is parallel to each other like in panel A and B, just to understand the effect. So here is say steep demand function means demand curve is inelastic, like commodity demanded is inelastic, and here like say this is our elastic demand. So here if we see here the area like deadweight loss is is larger than deadweight loss in the case where demand curve is inelastic. So this is just to show you what are the determinants of deadweight loss from the demand side and the supply side. So now let's move to the next point. Like we already have seen the tax revenue after imposition of the taxes both on the consumer and supply. So we have seen that after imposing tax on the per unit of the production of the goods or services, so what is the total tax area, like means tax revenue. So what is the deadweight loss and tax revenues relationship. So just take the example here, like say we can take three case like say demand supply, and here say price quantity, price on the vertical axis and quantity on the horizontal axis, and in all three panels that we have considered A, B and C. And suppose tax is imposed, like smaller amount of tax, like small tax, like this amount is tax, and little bigger amount of tax per unit. So this is the amount of tax that we get, and very big amount of tax. So this is, so as we know that this triangle areas are deadweight loss, and then this rectangular areas are tax revenue. So these dotted shaded areas are tax revenue, we can consider as TR, can write as TR. So these are the what is the relationship between deadweight loss and tax revenue. If tax revenue is becoming more, like here, like say small tax per unit, here medium, so we can consider like medium tax, and then in panel C it is like say large tax. So deadweight loss, it is like kind of positively related, like as your tax revenue is increasing, or imposition of the tax is per unit is increasing, like size of the tax is increasing, deadweight loss will be increasing. So now if we plot this like deadweight loss and the size of the tax relationship, so it is basically if on the horizontal axis is the tax size, and here if we consider you know, deadweight loss, then the relationship is positively, sort of is positively related, as we know that as tax sizes per unit increases, deadweight loss also will increase. So these are the upward sloping curve. So now there is also we can establish the relationship between tax revenue and then size of tax with the help of Laffer curve. So Arthur Laffer actually had shown, like, if we plot tax size in one axis and then tax revenue on the other, at the beginning, like, tax revenue, as tax size increases, tax revenue will increase, it will reach at the maximum and then it will start declining. So this is how the Laffer curve shows. Say here T dash, at T dash where it reaches at the maximum, the revenue collection reaches at the maximum at OT amount of tax, or say at T bar amount of tax, and then it will start declining. Although this relationship is kind of critiqued by many economists, especially on the declining part. But if we consider developing nations, like if tax size increases quite heavy, then there will be tendency to to evade the tax. People will not tend to pay more taxes. It is a discouraging factor even for the employer to work. That is what in Scandinavian nations it was observed during 1970s and 80s, where tax size was so high that almost over 60% of the income had gone towards the taxes, and that actually led to non-participation in the labor market, because that actually kind of factored as discouraging factor in the labor market entry, and therefore people chose to have more or relying on more welfare effects, like compensation, other benefits, because people found out compensation is much better as like as social assistance program was much better as compared to actively working in the labor market, because that that came from the high amount of per unit taxes that were imposed on the commodity productions. So this is the the relationship that tax revenue and tax size, and we also have seen that what are the relationship between market distortion and its impact on the social efficiency, and then also tax revenue and the deadweight loss. So even when we talk about market equilibrium, we really need to understand what is the overall deadweight loss, what we call social loss from the market equilibrium kind of situations. So I stop here, and these three books, Jonathan Gruber's, and then Mankiew's, and Pindick and Rubenfeld, some of your some of the selected chapters can be considered for your better understanding. With in these books, they have given much more examples which you can actually also try to relate. And thank you very much for your attentions, and I'll see you in my next class.